Hey, bonjour, this is Emma at Words and Peace and Friends Book Tours. So it's now time to present to you my TBR for February. I'm going to start talking about books that I'm currently reading, and I'm not going to give too many details on these, one, two, three, four, because I've talked more at length about them last month. So I'll give you the link to my previous video if you want to get more details on them. And the first two are spiritual books. So this is a commentary on Psalm 118 by the Russian author Saint-Théophane de Reclus. I'm just reading a few pages a day because it's really more meditation. And another spiritual book, which is a biography, This Holy Man, about Metropolitan Anthony Bloom, who actually lived most of his life in England. This is a biography, it's spiritual, but it reads more, like a story, so I read a bit more of this every night. I'm also reading, this is a big project because you see the thickness of this book, and those are really super thin pages and a lot of very little writing. Those are poems mostly by Paul Valéry, very famous French poet. So I'm planning on reading. It's going to take many more months, and because I'm just this one here, and I have 2 volumes like this. Okay. Now, 2 books I'm currently reading, but I'll be done in a couple of weeks, I believe. This is Poirot by Agatha Christie Poirot by Mark Aldrich. And as I've told you many times, last year I finished this big project of listening to all the short stories and novels with Hercule Poirot. That took me about 19 months. So I thought I would read this book as a conclusion to wrap it up. And the author basically presents each story and also background with some entries from Agatha Christie's diaries, journals, letters. And it's also about Hercule Poirot on radio, on TV, etc. And also lots of stuff about dealings between Agatha Christie and her publishers, and it can be really ugly sometimes. And a gorgeous book that also I'll be finishing pretty soon that I got for Christmas, A Brush with Birds by Richard Weatherly. Is Australian ornithologist, and he's a painter also. I'm just going to give you one more example. There were some last month. This is gorgeous, and it's also his journal, his journey, looking for some birds actually all over the world. There's a larger part on Australia, but it's also all over the world. Sorry. Then this month, actually, I had 3 books that I received for review. I received them a while ago for some of them, but I never got to them, so finally. But one that's going to be published early March, I believe. This is Lean on Me by Serge Joncourt. So, okay, I want to talk to you about this. I have read before this book, Wild Dog. I mean, obviously it's also in English translation. It was a fabulous novel, so by the same author. I'm just going to show you my conclusion here. Superb writing in this historical mystery and philosophical, psychological animal tale. Are you aware of the animal characteristics of your human nature and how your environment can change your life? If you haven't read this one yet, I highly, highly recommend it. So this is then a new book by him. And I'm going to read to you the presentation here shortly. When a flock of crows invades their shared apartment block, farmer turned debt collector Ludovic and fashion designer Aurore speak for the first time. With nothing but the birds in common, the two are destined for separate lives, yet are drawn inextricably together. So it seems to be some type of romance. I don't want to read more of the synopsis because I like to go into a book not knowing about it. And it's from Gallic Books, which is fabulous. You see it? Fabulous publisher of translated fiction. And so yeah, sorry, it sounds a bit like a romance, but I assume because of the author that it's going to be a lot about the environment as well. Now, the other two books I received for review are ebooks. One is by Helen Rappaport. Okay, I've read this book by her, which was the Romanov Sisters. This was really an amazing history book on the last no, not just the last year, the whole life of the Romanov sisters, including the horrific ending. But she's an amazing author. She's really the specialist on Romanov and Russia more generally, actually. And so she does great job at her background information, but the way she inserted it's fantastic. So this one is called After the Romanov. So Russian exiles in Paris from the Belle Epoque through revolution and war. And well, I guess that tells you all. You can see this little part of the synopsis is story of the Russian aristocrats, artists, and intellectual who sought freedom and refuge in the City of Light. I assume it's going to be really excellent. And the other book I received for review, it's called The Last House on Needless Street. I assume several of you have already read it because actually it was published last year, looks like. I have no memory why I requested this book, and I'm a bit worried because the first category is horror. At least over 1,400 users on Goodreads classified it as horror, and I do not like horror, but several of you told me it's more psychological, so we'll see. This is the story of a serial killer, stolen child, revenge, death, and an ordinary house at the end of an ordinary street. We'll see. Okay, then, from January to March, there is the annual Japanese Literature Challenge, and my plan is to read 12 books, and I'm a bit late for January. I haven't finished the Waiting Years. I started it, but I haven't finished it, so I'm going to finish this one in February. This is by Fumiko Enshi, an author I had never read before. The beautiful immature girl whom she took home to her husband was a maid-only name. Tomo's real mission had been to find him a mistress. So, and I'm kind of the beginning of the book where Tomo just arriving in a family and just starting meeting possible candidates. Then the next book on my Japanese list is Star Yukio Mishima, and this is an author I enjoy a lot. I've read, for instance, The Sound of Waves last year, I believe. It was really excellent. And this last Sunday, I presented Dojoji, which is a play by the same author. So I'm really curious to see what he will do with this one. What's really interesting with Mishima is he's written a lot, and all the books I've already read by him are completely different genres. So, and this is kind of a short story, and this is a short story actually, 96 pages. We'll see. If you want to know a bit more about this, it's about Rikyu. His fans cheer for a roped-off section, screaming and yelling to attract the attention. They would kill for a moment alone with him. Finally, the director sets up the shot, the camera begins to roll, someone yells action. Rikyu for a moment transforms into another being, a hardened young Yakuza, but as soon as the shot is finished, he slumps back into his own anxieties and obsessions. We'll see. Then my next one, it is also Japanese, but I only found it in French. By the way, the waiting years that I just presented to you, I'm actually reading it in French too. I couldn't really find quickly the English translation. It's going to be the same for Les Dimanches de Monsieur Ushioda. I don't even know the English title, if it has been translated into English, maybe not. There still are quite a good number of Japanese books that are available in French but not in English. So I'm fortunate to be able to read in both languages. So this is seems to be kind of a comic, humoristic, social novel about this Yoshida, who is a CEO of a big company, and is just 3 years away from his retirement, and he would like to kind of spend a quiet Sunday, but with his spouse, because of his wife and his friends, it seems that he's going to have all kind of things coming in the way of his quiet Sunday. We'll see what this is about. Then I'm really looking forward to this book by Kobo Abe. I have read several books by him and I really enjoy this author. This one is The Boxman. Yeah, The Woman in the Dunes. This was really good. Here, he combines widely imaginative fantasies and naturalistic prose to create narratives reminiscent of the work of Kafka and Beckett. Yeah, it's eerie, weird, but usually is really, really good. So this will be my 5 now Japanese novels for February. And also, I'm part of the classical club, and we have a challenge related to kind of love, because this February is the month of love. And so one of the books on my current list, which is my 3rd list for the classic clubs, is Love in a Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, that I haven't read yet, but I've read 100 Years of Solitude, and some of you have told me this is actually even better, so I'm really looking forward to that. And I thought, oh yeah, I have 2 other books because I'm also part of I'm doing this year the TBR reading challenge, and I'd like to read 2 this month because I haven't read any for January, and it's 12 books challenge. So I'd like to read this one, Crème Brûlée. The subtitle is actually Thomas Jefferson. Oh yeah, you can see it here. How a founding father and the slave, sorry, I cannot really read and I don't know by heart, and the slave James Hemings introduced French cuisine to America by Thomas Crowell. I have had this book for years and never read it, despite the topic. So hopefully this is going to be really good. Yeah, if I had done this, you could have seen much better. Okay. And the other one is a super tiny book called Le Voyage d'Octavio. So Octavio's Trip or Travel by Miguel Bonnefoy is really tiny. I received it with a French book box that I tried a few years ago, and I never read it, so I should be able to have these 2 this month. And then I'll end with some audiobooks. So I am currently listening to Intuitio, which is a French audiobook by Laurent Gounel, who is a French, who is a new author for me. And this is really fascinating. So unfortunately, I don't think the book is translated in English yet, in many languages, including Russian, but not French. So it's about an author, and somebody working with the FBI has has heard this author in different interviews, and then noticed that he has a great intuition. So they decide to hire him to try to identify a terrorist who's been bombing several tours and several towers. And so they think thanks to his intuition, this author will be able to identify what the next target will be. And this is very interesting. It's actually based on real scientific data. There's been some experiments, and the author says that himself, he went through this test. There's some things you can identify if you can really tap deeply into somebody's intuition. And there are some police techniques using that as well. I'm almost done with the book. There are some weird stuff, maybe that you can identify something that's not happened yet, that will happen. This aspect of the future is kind of weird, but all the other dimensions are really fascinating. Plus there's a lot of red herrings, because at one point the author in the story doesn't really know who his friends are. He thinks there's a woman who was his trainer, and in this intuition, it looks like she was his friend, but at one point he starts wondering, was she or is she a friend with the killer? And we don't know until the very end, and actually I don't know yet. And then I will listen to another French book called Gattaca by Frank Charcot. Now, I have listened to a lot of books by Frank Charcot. I mean, it's not Frank Charcot, I'm sorry, by Frank Tillier. The hero is Frank Charcot. Now, Frank Tillier's books are rough, lots of violence and some pretty gruesome details sometimes, but I like in this one, actually, this one has been translated into English as Bred to Kill. And as the thing they say here, yeah, we talk about his unmatched ability to inject cutting-edge science. Here he draws on genetics, paleontology, and the dark side of human nature to create this smart, adrenaline-fueled thriller. Yeah, this is something I really, really enjoy in Frank Tillier, is beside all the gruesome, there's a very strong use of science at all kind of different areas of science depending on the different books. So I think I'm really going to enjoy this one as well. And I'm probably going to be able to listen to a couple more audiobooks. But that will be the surprise as you follow my blog. And I think that's it for today. So thank you very much for watching this video, and see you next month, and have a great reading month. Au revoir.